Hello, hello, everyone. I'm excited to introduce another beautiful revolutionary conversation. Today's conversation is all about immortality and invincibility. And I'm so grateful to be joining you today with my co creator, collaborator, soul sister, Janel Willette. Welcome, Janelle.
Thank you. This is such a great, it's like the hot seat of life where invincibility and immortality meet. And if we're lucky enough to have an experience of feeling invincibility, feeling that invincibility is flowing within us. Not that I feel like I'm going to become invincible, but let invincibility be known through you. That's what we're talking about.
Mm. And that opportunity to be able to break down these words because they're big words like immortality. Yeah, that sounds like a movie star esque. Like, what does that actually mean, right? Invincibility. What does that actually mean? Like when you said
Yeah.
just what you said there about being invincible, I'm reminded of when I was a kid, and I used to think
Uh,
like, you know what? My grandma, she had an old farmhouse, and my cousin and I used to think that if we jumped from the top story with a sheet, that we could probably fly because we'd seen that before, right?
yeah.
And that opportunity to go, okay, yeah, I can do this just like the comics do this, or just like I've seen people do this on TV, like I'm invincible. And the time that we tried to jump from like one story roof of the back porch and going, that didn't work quite the way I thought it did. It was going to. Ooh, why didn't
Yeah.
that work? Am I not invincible? Like I thought I could fly. I thought I could soar. Um,
Ah,
there's something about invincibility that it feels like it's so far out of reach. So I want to just take this opportunity for you to help us, like break down
mm,
those words, so big words.
beautiful. I'd love to because there comes a time in our life when we look back and we can sort of see the context and the corresponding um, relationality of it. Like this happened, and what are those patterns that led to those aha moments when you actually know that invincibility is living you? Having those moments. So even think to yourself a time in your life where you go, whoa, that was an epic moment. That was an epic chapter or a day, right? And so what are the factors and variables, the culture and the conditions that led to that? And that's what I'm so passionate about breaking down and bringing into our life so that we can really begin to create a life that is rich and right from the inside out, that fosters a life of invincibility. And so invincibility comes when we have such ultra alignment, both inside and we're open versus being contracted in our thinking, organizing, linear mind. And it's like that innocence. It's like so in the moment. There's not a part of you that's projecting into the future, and there's no part of you that's caught up in the past. So, in some way, you're so in the moment, you become super fluid. And when we're in the moment and we don't have an agenda, but we have a focus, like for let's say that you have a desire and you're in alignment with that desire, your life is organized in such a way that it is in resonance with that which you aspire to become or achieve. So
Mm.
now you have this inner alignment. You're living in accordance with what you really want. We call that integrity. The first way to have truest integrity and let integrity create something beyond ourselves is to have that integrity with ourselves. And then having that integrity with the alignment in our world, not trying to make something happen, but being very awake and aware of what the timing is. Like, is that person in the right place to say what you want to say to that person? And you walk into the room and you feel their contracted state. And so if you don't have an agenda and you choose to be more awake and aware, you go, this isn't the right time. And you just let life flow and you trust that one day it'll come back and it'll be the right time. You hold it and you foster that in your own self, but you're not connected to the timing or the way it's going to unfold.
Mm.
Right? So you keep your North Star very, very in your purview. Every moment of how you live and what you do is in accordance and alignment with your North Star, what you most aspire to have. And Jules, I remember one day I was leaving Marin, I was crossing the bridge, the Great Bridge, which I love bridges because they're so metaphoric. And I'm crossing the bridge back to the mainland, the new mainland of Janel after my sojourn. And as I'm at a light in San Francisco, I was feeling this energy as I was just sitting with myself and the world, both within me and around me. And my orientation, of course, was to head back to Carmel, which is where I live. So I had my orientation set. I knew where I was going. So I was very present. And all of a sudden, this wellspring of invincibility filled my whole being. And I was only noticing. And I said to my friend who I was waving to in San Francisco, I am feeling this invincibility. No idea where it came from. But I could feel like there was such alignment. And I drive home and I get into my life. And I walked into the sauna after my swim. And this woman said, oh, are you looking for a place to live? I said, yeah, I am. Where are you with it? And then she said, yes, someone has just moved out. If you'd like to come and look at the place. And I said, great. Yes, let's do that. How about today? So after I finished work, I went up. I looked at the place. I felt it. It was wide open. It was inviting. It was exactly what I envisioned. And she said, well, go ahead and here's the number of the owner. Have a talk. I called her that evening. We had a great conversation. I signed the agreement. And within 3 hours, it had all happened itself. And I look back and so many times we go through all these processes and all these steps. And it gets bogged down in time and mind and delays. But there is that moment of superfluidity when the wheel of time and the wheel of life line up. So the quest is, how can we line ourselves up so that we are in such congruence and coherence that this place of resonance can bring about our own ultimate invincibility into life, into our North Star, what we aspire to achieve or become or bring into fruition. And there's so much that we can do because it's not that we have to be in control of the variables. It's not to be in control, but to maintain our fluid alignment with all the variables and the factors that are for
I
us.
I feel that in my being when you say that, and it's so funny because it reminds me my kid self, and I do a lot of work with pediatrics as well. So that like kid energy as well, invincibility, kid energy.
Yeah.
But that same, you remember those books, the Mind's Eye books or Mind's Eye pictures, and that if you focus too hard, right? If you try to push,
Mhm.
if you try to make it happen, all of those little stereographs, I think they're called, all of those little pieces, they look like digitized, right? You're focusing too hard. You're not going to see
Right.
the hidden picture, right? And if you just go with the flow completely and don't focus anywhere, then it's just all blur.
Yeah.
But it's kind of finding that like middle point where you're focused, you've got your North Star in mind, right? You know your line driving, you know where your line driving to, but you're also not so attached to how it's supposed to work out that you're super focused and super controlling, that the flow and the focus find
Hmm.
that beautiful harmony, and then the picture shows up. It just reminded me of when you said that. It's like that super fluidity of the invincibility. It shows up when you create the conditions where it's not too focused or too lax, right?
Hmm.
It's finding your balance in between, which it must take like a lot of energy to do that. I remember when I first did those mind's eye puzzles, I
Uh-huh.
was like, I'm just not getting it. Maybe the next page.
Yeah.
I'm just not getting it. Maybe the next page. Maybe the next page. And I was a 12-year-old kid, right? I was like, why is it
Yeah.
so easy? Why can my sister see this? And she's 4 years younger. And but then when I finally got it, I'd flip from page to page and I could use that same focus on
Yeah.
every single page and the picture would show up. Like the magic hidden picture appeared. I go, how was it that this was here the whole time?
Yeah.
And I just didn't have the capacity. I didn't know how to find those conditions that let it
Hmm.
arise. It feels like a similar pathway.
So very true, because just as you say, it's that balance of effort and ease. And in our human mechanism, we have this default to try harder. And the trying harder is a contracted state, which closes us from exactly what we want. And we often find it hard to recognize that we are in our own way,
Every time.
right? And then they're like, oh, how did I do that? Well, so Jules and I love to create opportunities for people to be proactive, to sort of look at what are the factors and the variables, the culture and the conditions that help us embody those peak state conditions, so that whatever you're living or whatever life is unfolding for you, you arrive with your best self, ready to take on that journey that you're meant to live, so that you are crossing these thresholds that are here for you to learn what you're meant to learn and get the golden wisdom that the universe is offering you. Because ultimately, that's why and how this choreography is showing up for you. To
Yeah.
look at the patterns that are repeating themselves again and again and again.
And that magic, if somebody offered me that and said, hey, you could have this, I would say, yeah, of course I want that. I'm sure we're all listening to this, watching this, like, yeah, I want that, of course. Um, there's a feel to that too, because I know that you've talked about immortality and invincibility together before.
Hmm.
And I
Hmm.
know that a lot of people have said to me, like, what does that mean, immortality? Because, do we really want to be immortal? Like what does that look like? We like the idea, the thought of it, but what does that actually look like? Or how does a immortal be
Mm.
immortal?
An immortal person does not live with fear. When you've become immortal, you don't have fear. To live your life without fear is a life of such embrace, such presence, and in presence is the power. To embrace life is to be open, to live from love, whatever version and variation of love it is. So it's an expanded state where you are receptive and available for life's gifts, for life's grace. And there's almost like a greater knowing that's even a step beyond faith. Because a lot of us talk about faith as a high plane to try to embrace. And I see immortality, Jules, as a step beyond that. Because there's such a knowing, there's an unchanging inside that is in great relationship, fluid relationship with the ever-changing. And so that unchanging can easily embrace and flow with the ever-changing. And knowing that that's part of the great cycle of life in all of its ways, whether it's death or whether it's loss, whether it's someone moving on from your life, whether it's a completion of a chapter, whether it's something happening with loved ones that is pulling at your heartstrings, you come back to that place within yourself. And from true presence of this play of life, it's almost like being able to hold a sphere of reality that includes it all. What was truly true and really real before you incarnated as this person, as this human, and includes the play of life. And then there's going to be a day that you leave this mortal body. And yet as you leave, there's a timeline that's beyond time in which that true truth, that which is always true, continues to live on. And you realize there's a timeline and there's no timeline. Ultimately, life never stops living itself. I am that life, and that life is me. I am one with that life.
And I feel from that very first sentence that you used, Janelle, about the fact that as human beings, like here incarnate in physical human form, that we think of fear as being such an important thing, important, and also you can't go without fear. Like in the mentality, just the thought of not having fear feels like such a big pattern disruptor, because don't we all have fear? So there was like that, like, whoo, I felt like there was like a pattern disruptor moment. I was like, I need to, just reflect that back to Janelle. I think that I am one of those people among many people listening and watching as well. Like the the thought of living a life without fear, like, and for some reason in my context, I was like, don't we need fear? Because fear kind of, even so we can push up against fear.
Now, now, there's no need for fear. There's no need for fear. Every single time. And fear can be a really great teacher. It can be a catalyst. Underneath the fear is the unresolved, the contractedness, the fragment, or where the healing is calling you. And once it's healed and resolved, alchemy, there's only love. So fear can be your greatest teacher. I'll tell you a story. In my younger years, in my 20s, I was living in New York, Connecticut area, and I was on fire. I was ready to excel my life in such a way, and I know it was just a powerful time in my life. And I was on a mission to banish all of my fear. I was, and one of my dear friends, Dr. Evers White, said, Janelle, why are you so, hell bent on removing your fear? And I said, because I can see how it constricts and it limits me. And I'm here to find my unlimited self. So what's up in front of me is a fear. And so one of the first fears that I was very, very aware of was my fear of heights. And I was like, wait, what? Why do I have this radical fear of heights? And so my journey, well, that was in front of me because I knew and I could feel how it was almost like this eclipse of how I wasn't free to live my life because of this fear I had of heights. And so I went through this inner journey and I said, my my graduation, my mastery out of it is going to be jumping from an airplane and skydiving. And that's going to be the culmination. And I'm going to have this journey through fear be met. I'm going to meet fear itself. And I'm going to let myself dissolve in this fear. Right? It took a lot of fire. But that's the fire of desire. To let that fire of desire be larger than the fear. And so I did. I jumped from the airplane and I was witnessing all of this fear come up while the plane's going up. And of course, the trap doors open the whole way while we're going up 1, 2 miles. And as I'm going up, I'm aware that I'm going to go down this whole distance. And I just let that fear get bigger than me. And then the time came to jump. And the first person was, of course, ready at the trap door. And my fear was so much bigger than I was. And I go, I'm not going to not do this. I'm not going to go down with the pilot. I'm going to jump. I made that agreement with myself. Right? And so I said to the instructor, I said, I think I need to go next before the fear gets so big. So I went second and I took that leap. It's like you jump and you learn how to fly on the way down. We all need to find that capacity in ourselves, or we're never going to pass the threshold in which we let that fear enslave us. So there was the free jump, and then the parachute came. And then there was exactly that invincibility where effort and ease merged. There was no resistance. There was no fear. It was all dissolved.
Thank you for that most perfectly fitting story. I love how this conversation is
It's a
just.
metaphor for every one of us.
Mm, we all have our own version of jumping out of the airplane, whether it be standing up on stage singing the song that you wrote, or standing up and speaking your truth to somebody that you love,
Yeah.
or that you don't love. But whatever that might be, it's going to be different for each and every one of us. But our capacity to be able to fully acknowledge that fear and recognize it, oh, it's way bigger than us. Like, just like you said, Janelle, like this fear is way bigger than me. And I'm still not going to let that stop me from moving through it. Right. And that we've all done that before, where we've like come to that edge, that precipice, and actually jumped. Whether that's giving a presentation in front of your class when you have like anxiety about doing so, or whether it's like speaking the truth in that regard, whatever that is for you, you've stepped through it and you know what it feels like. Every one of us has stepped through it and done it and reap the benefits of that, even if you were sweating buckets, or you really had to go to the bathroom right away. It was just so intense. It matters not the all of the effort that you put into doing it and proving it to yourself that you did it. We all have that capacity in us, and creating the conditions so that we can continue to find that beautiful place, the magic eye puzzle, where we're not focused so hard, or we're not just laying back and trying to let the flow just flow us there, but where we are initiating that beautiful balance so that the magic can appear, whether it's a magic picture, a magic
Right.
reality, a magic desire. We have to be the ones to initiate that. We are it. We are what we've been waiting for, and we're the biggest thing getting in our own way, just like you
Yeah.
said, Janelle.
Yeah. So the big question is, bringing it home, is what is your relationship with fear? And the second question is, what is your relationship with telling yourself the truth? Because the only way you can walk around and circumnavigate fear is because you're not telling yourself the truth. That is no way to be free or live a life that is untethered, passionate, and power filled, in which you meet your own soul, you meet the center of your heart, and you let that flame guide you in the midst of the fear or the angst. And that's exactly why I believe that this program that Jules and I have created, which is the immersion into immortality and invincibility, is so powerful, because it does become the journey that life calls us to live. So a lot of us are at this precipice, and it's a lot easier to take this journey, because that journey is not going to let you say no much longer. And so to do it in a way where you meet life and you meet your fears, and you are met from a place of holding, from presence, and guided and given tools and jewels, because Jules and I to combine have so much knowledge and wisdom and experience how to walk through the fire and to live invincibility, grounded in your own immortality. Because once you find that, it's that which will never change. And nothing can destroy you or push you back from your own inner calling, your inner soul, your contract, the architecture of which you're here to live. Because once you say yes to that, you are saying yes to let the powers, the grace, and the intelligence of the universe arrive to support you. And it requires that big yes. People say, whoa, where is that power? Where is that force? It's at your door waiting for you to say yes. That's where it's at. It's on the other side,
Mhm.
waiting for you to open it.
And I feel like that's the perfect time to mention that the commitment, because I've had this experience just recently where I thought I was committed to this journey, and I wanted to be, and I really wanted to be there, but there's a certain point where it's a full surrender commitment. As soon as you commit to yourself, as soon as you open up the door, right? And it just changes everything. But it takes that commitment from you. It took that commitment from me to be able to fully surrender to it. And for me, that like dropped me into like a huge, you know, puddle of tears and sobbing. I had no idea that was going to hit me. And it was like my body, my being, my experience was so happy that I
Mhm.
finally said yes, because now that flow can move through me. I've given it permission to, but nothing is going to happen without us choosing for
Yeah,
it to happen. And a full out commitment choosing versus a, yeah, I choose that. It's like,
yeah,
prove it,
yeah,
take
yeah.
action towards it, prove it that you're choosing this. And that's I think where we get caught often is we're like, yeah, that's exactly what I want. But are your
Mhm.
actions matching that commitment? Right? Is everything in your being, if this is something you really want, is everything in your being aligning with that through the way that you are engaging in your world? Your lifestyle, is it matching the style by which you want to live, as Janelle said in the past? So that opportunity with this immortality, invincibility, immersion, like imagine it, like you are stepping into the waters, right? We are swimming in this. We are dancing together.
Right. And that dive is 10 toes. Not one part of you can stay on the shore. And so many times in life, we realize that we haven't really dove in and given life, given what we say to ourselves that we want our everything. So, in a way, it's like, how are we sabotaging and actually betraying and not being in integrity with ourselves? That's where it all begins. That's where your invincibility potential lies in your big yes.
Mm. I know that there are people, if you're listening to this and you're
Mm,
feeling this, this is whew, hitting home in whatever way it's
yeah.
hitting. And we hope that it's just hitting that beautiful golden spark within you that's just waiting for you to commit to you. In whatever way that looks like for you, that it's calling to you and that you're listening. That is our dream. And we've created
Yeah.
this mastermind, actually the Golden Genius Mastermind we have going every 2 weeks on Wednesday nights. And if that's something that you want to just kind of step your toes in the water, just
Mhm.
just a toe in the water, just to feel it out, to just know there's more people who are on this path who are feeling this. Please, like, jump in with us. Reach out to us, Golden Genius Mastermind at gmail.com, and we will put you into the circadian rhythm. Yeah, kind of.
Yes.
Yeah, kind of into the circuitry. Throw you into the circuitry of the weaving of that golden thread together. And if you are interested in this immersion, this first one does start soon on December 5th. But there will be more iterations if you're catching this later. But that opportunity to commit to yourself in ways that you can't even possibly imagine, but you can feel from the way that this landed for you today. So we invite you to reach out, to share. If there's somebody in your world who you know is like, this is going to speak to them, share it with them. Like, that's the best gift ever. And thank you so much for joining us today. Thank you, Janelle, for this beautiful tapestry weaving. Mm.
It's dance. And I believe that there is so many people are feeling this beckoning. And don't wait for the whisper to shout.
Mm.
To thy own self be true. That is the path that leads to your golden summit. And that's the life you were born to live. Honor that. Be true to it. Put everything into that golden nucleus that wants to come alive from within you.
Mm. With that, that's the perfect mic drop moment. Sending so much love to all of you, and looking forward to joining you on the dance floor if this speaks to you.